Welcome to Corrective Consciousness, episode 32. I am your host, VyseTheBold, and this is...
Lotus Prince.
And PyroJackFrost.
That cadence.
For anybody who's thrown off by that, we'll listen to the last 3 or 4 episodes. And we'll understand
It'll all make
Pyro
sense.
is weird.
The canon of this podcast.
That's right.
This episode's canon.
Warning.
So, Square Enix Goida. Anyway, we have another wonderful podcast about our inane lives and self-absorbed inane lives and what's going on in them and the awesome things. So
I'll do my best to make my mundane existence sound more interesting than it really is.
That's what podcasting is all about, is to make your lives seem more interesting than they actually are.
That is a good point. I wonder how many people listen to it and they're like, whoa, man, these guys always have stuff to talk about. And I'm just, sitting home in the evening just playing a PS3 game for like 3 hours. It's like, there it is.
Still my heart. It's Pyro, Lotus, and Vyse again. But I kind of took that off of the old SelectButton.net podcast. It's half rollicking argument and half self-absorbed innatity.
Nice.
A great line. So don't think I wasn't aware of my thievery there. Mm-hmm. So anyway, take it off the top, Pyro. Let's get going here.
All right. So first, just I mentioned last time that I finished Final Fantasy 15. So I'm kind of in the middle of games. I tried playing Dark Souls 3 a little bit. I tried playing Final Fantasy Class 0, whatever it's called. I tried
Type
playing
0?
Type 0, yeah. I tried playing Final Fantasy X-2. I've just been jumping through games. I haven't really decided on what I want to play, so that's something we can get to later. But
how is Type 0, by the way? How is Type 0, by the way?
It's okay. I played it when I first got it, and I didn't really stick with it, and then I started playing it again, and I'm like, it's bad going off of 15, not just because the graphics are really bland and open, but like there's nothing there, but it's kind of like a mission-based Final Fantasy.
Well, keep in mind where it came from. Do you know the origins of that game?
No.
Not really.
Oh, okay. It was originally a PSP game, so that's why it might
I do know
feel
that.
weird.
No, I know the whole like where the system was on, but it seems like I don't want to say Monster Hunter, but Monster Hunter in the sense that it's like you go on missions that you're trying to complete things for.
Sure, I can actually.
Where there's like a hub, and you just go on missions, and it doesn't feel. I've only been playing it for like an hour or two, so granted, it could totally change, but it didn't really draw me in.
For a Final Fantasy game, that is weird, but I mean, I'm not about to play Final Fantasy Type 0 because I haven't played Final Fantasy in freaking forever, but that kind of gameplay sounds like right up my alley. I just like the idea of checking the quest board and ticking off the check marks as you go to like get better and better rewards. Something about that just is pleasing to me.
Crisis Core is also really similar to that in structure.
I did like Crisis Core, so it might just be I need to give it more time. But I have the HD remaster for 10 and 10.2, and I think part of me wanted to play Type 0, but I really wanted to play 10.2 again, so I just said, you know what, I don't like this game, and I just moved on. It kind of gave me an excuse to stop playing it. I'm pretty sure if I had nothing else to play, and I went to play Type 0, I would probably enjoy it. I just didn't give it enough chance.
I can see that.
But the other things I want to talk about is, first of all, I have still been playing phone games. Fire Emblem, I'm playing every now and then. It's more, I'm going to wait till the next event, and if I don't like it, then I'm done, because right now it's just, I find it more of a chore than anything. But I did play this new game called Soliterica. It's on iOS and Android, and it's actually really fun because it's a solitaire, almost like Solitaire the card game, but mixed with an RPG, kind of, like vaguely. In the sense of like you have a deck and the suits aren't like diamonds, clubs, spades, and hearts, but it's strength or attack, defense, willpower, and agility. And whenever you get a card or match a card, let's say, like normal solitaire rules where let's say you have an ace, then you can only do twos or kings, and then the king you can do queen or back up to ace. So you have to make the sequence of cards.
Okay.
But whenever you select a card or get a card, you get one energy of that type, and you have spells you can use.
That's pretty neat.
For the attack ones, if you have 3 attack energy, you can destroy 1 card in any column. And then if you have the there's a card that can change types of the cards that you're getting. So it's really cool because it gives another structure to Solitaire. And the point is, like, you're fighting monsters, and the columns of cards you get are a monster. And when you destroy all the cards, you defeat the monster, and then you move to the next one.
That's cool.
But it's even cooler because it's kind of like a roguelike. So,
oh, neat.
Some of the cards give you coins, and between monsters you can buy new items or spells to equip, and then eventually you'll probably end up dying. And what happens is, depending on how far you get this other currency, like let's say they're called gems, and you can use gems to upgrade your deck. But you start from scratch again. You start from the easiest monster with no coins, no items, and the starter spells. And then you build that up again until you get as far as you can for a run. And then you apparently build it up enough. And then once you beat that deck, you can then buy another deck. And then go through the same thing with that. So it's kind of it's free to play for most of the time. But other than that, it is, I think on iOS, it's like $5 to $10. And then on Android, it's technically $1 for each deck you want to buy, I believe it is, or you can just pay all up front to have it just be free. But it's a cool game because it's really easy to just play a run and then be done with it. So I really enjoy it, and I think that that's gonna be the new game that I play for a while on my phone, other than like keeping up with the dailies of that other game I'm playing.
Nice.
Jeez, I think like Solitaire really counts as like the best, most well-known casual game, pretty much. I mean, because like everybody knows how to play it and have played it on whatever device they had at least once. You know,
yeah.
Like,
When
I used to play it on my iPod Classics even back in the day.
When I was a kid and I was really bored, I would take out a deck of cards and actually play Solitaire.
Yeah, I've done that.
Sure.
And it's cool because it's like taking that game that we've all played and known and adding this one other part to it where the cards you actually are gaining give you something that you can use to make it easier to defeat cards. And it's an added thing to it that I can see myself playing for a while. Because I was trying to find another game to play, because I know I was doing my dailies on Valkyrie Connect, and that's fun and all. But I kind of wanted a phone game to actually play, not just a free-to-play game to play on my phone. And I heard a lot about Soliterica from when I listened to Giant Bomb, and I wanted to give it a try. So
I'm definitely going to download it since you suggested it, because it sounds like something I would like to play.
Yeah, and I looked at, and I thought of it too because I was trying to find maybe a Final Fantasy game to play on my phone, and I know they have all the Final Fantasies on the phone, but I didn't know if I wanted to actually play a Final Fantasy on my phone. Like one of the actual, like 9, let's say. I know I didn't want to play that on my phone.
Yeah, they have
you
a
heard of
PC version of that now.
Yeah, and I would probably just play it on that. Have you heard of the Adventure of Mana phone game?
Yeah, so what's cool about that game, that's the remake of Final Fantasy Adventure. And it's also a remake of Sword of Mana as a result. So it's a decent game, but what's even better is that you can actually get it for Vita now.
Really?
And PlayStation TV. So it's better on that because it's a lot easier to control. But the touch controls aren't too bad, but it's better on the Vita. A lot of people were really happy that it finally came out on the Vita. That's actually one of the last Vita and not console games to come out that I can even think of. It's certainly the last one I bought. I can't think of any other it's not a Vita exclusive, of course, because it's a mobile game too. But it's the only game that I know of that didn't also come out on PS4. On the Vita. I can't think of anything, honestly, in a long time. Probably Severed was the only game for a while before that, and that ended up coming out on Wii U and tablets. So that's another really good game. You should give that one a shot.
Okay.
That one's like a first-person dungeon crawler, but it uses touch-screen controls for the combat, and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, so the other thing that I actually played it yesterday. I mentioned Myth before. It's a board game that is kind of like a dungeon crawler. But yesterday I was able to play a module, which is a story quest that the designers actually make. So the game itself is kind of like a toolbox. So they give you a set of rules. They give you have minis, you have tiles, you have all these cards. They give you the rules you follow, but basically it's design the game yourself. Not design the game. Play the game yourself, meaning you choose what tile to go to and how the monsters are laid out. And you can choose to make them hard, you can choose to make them difficult. It's really up to you. So there's not a lot of structure in that sense, and like how to proceed in the game. Just here's the rules of combat, here's the rules of the tile you pick, but other than what tile you go to, that's up to you. You decide when you want to fight a boss. You decide what enemy types you want to fight. So there's not a lot of structure, so they made modules, which are actual stories you follow, where they actually tell you how to set up the tile and what monsters you fight and all that sort of stuff. So I played my first module yesterday, and we actually played the game for like 12 hours straight, because it's a three-act structure. Yeah, it's a 3-act structure, and we played all 3 acts in one day to upgrade our heroes. It was actually really fun, and it got me back into the game, and I now have 2 groups who want to play it, so which is good because I spent like over $500 on the game so far, and that will give me a reason to actually play it now.
Yeah,
but
sure.
It's really fun because as you go through the game, you upgrade your characters. You can change what the character's deck looks like, so you can like exchange cards in the deck for better cards, or you can keep equipment and you get equipment as you go. I know last time I mentioned it was before MagFest, and we were thinking of playing at MagFest, but it's a really long game. But maybe if you guys come over once, I can show you it a little bit.
Yeah, I would love to see it. I mean,
Indeed.
it sounds like it's kind of like D&D in that like they have like specific campaigns that you could play.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's kind of like a board game. It's kind of like D&D, but with a little bit more of a board game feel.
I think I would like
really
that
cool.
a lot better because I've been always wanting to play D&D, but its lack of structure, like unless you have somebody who really reins you in as a DM and is really good at that, I've never really had that whenever I tried to play. So I feel like its lack of structure has always kept me from playing it. So I feel like the more board-like game form, but also like allow you to play different, vastly different versions of the game. Depending on the campaign or whatever you're playing, the module that you're playing. That would be really up my alley. But I don't know about 12 hours. But it sounds like fun.
Well, like I said, that was 3 acts. So
Sure.
if you wanted to play 1 act, I mean, it might take 4 hours. But also, let's put it this way: maybe it wasn't. It was 12 hours, but we like stopped in the middle every now and then. People were still learning the rules, so it took a little longer. But you could always stop after 1 tile. You could stop after 1 act. You can stop kind of whenever you want. And I could go on for like another 20 to 60 minutes about the game, but I'm going to stop there and just say that this is a kind of I wouldn't say they're a brand new company now because they do have like 4 games out, but they're still kind of they are still kind of new. They're still learning the ropes of all the stuff involved in making a board game and selling it. But I do recommend people checking it out and checking out some of their other games. I did try to play another one of their games, but I haven't really got a chance to actually finish it yet. But yeah, I just wanted to bring it up and say that it was really cool, the whole idea of having a character that's persistent along the story that you tell of them.
That's cool.
So, Lotus Prince, how did your week go?
Well, pretty well, I think. First things first, on Tuesday, Mr. Ryu and I watched John Wick 2, and
I'm just so jealous.
that was
I haven't even watched the
fun.
first one yet.
Oh, man, do it. I mean,
I keep hearing that I should.
As far as the first one is concerned, have you seen Taken with Liam Neeson?
Yeah.
Yes, and I have heard that it's like Taken, but
With way more
dog.
gunplay. I mean,
Yeah.
it involves a dog, yeah, but it's basically, instead of like in Taken, Liam Neeson went through anybody who stood in his way for the purpose of getting his daughter back. And in John Wick, Keanu Reeves basically tries taking down this. I mean, it kind of is parallel to Taken. He tries working at bringing down this entire organization to get this one guy who's really, really made him mad. What makes Taken different, or what makes John Wick different from Taken, though, at least in the first movie, is that in Taken, the villains were just like, I dare you to get your daughter back. You're not going to do it. We're way the hell over here, and you're in the United States. See you later. Taken 1 takes place in, I think it's New York, and the big difference with that one is that everyone knows who John Wick is, and the bad guys are afraid of him the entire time. Like,
oh really?
Yeah, what did you do? Kind of stuff. Like, oh man, you woke up the giant.
Yeah, the one man in the world who doesn't know who he is of course the guy who pissed him off, and he's like, all right, you're dead, and like this giant mob boss finally becomes aware that John Wick is coming for his son, and he's just like, oh wow, okay. So it's really interesting. So John Wick 2, it's not quite the same dynamic, but it's another movie where John Wick just mows down, tons of guys. What's interesting, though, is that in both movies they establish, or I guess they world build without doing clunky exposition. Like, as you know, this is how the world works. Like, you just kind of see it work, and, we're not stupid, we can figure it out. John Wick 2 has way more world building. It turns out this organization that John Wick is part of is way the hell bigger than New York. Like, there's this, like, super hotel he goes to in New York, and that's apparently one of many, like, stuff like that. I'm not going to go into more detail, but this is bigger than anybody thought. And it's
an assassin's hotel where assassins are safe.
Yeah, and it turns out that is an assassin's hotel. And it's just like, it's great. So John Wick 2 is world building the movie, and there will it's sequel baits, but normally I'm not much of a fan of sequel baiting because it's like, oh, overconfident are we? But even though it's a sequel, John Wick 2 it's debatable, but it's arguably better than the first one. And I love the first one. So, yeah, I mean, you're going to want to see the first one first, because the first part of the second movie references it very heavily. But definitely watch both movies. They are really good. I don't
know about you guys, but I'm still waiting on the Super Mario Brothers 2 sequel that they teased.
Oh, of course. Oh, they did tease that, didn't they?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Like, no way that was getting a sequel.
But yeah,
you never know.
Yeah, but John Wick was great. John Wick 2, also great. Highly recommended. I expected it to be good.
Would you say the second one was better than the first one, or worse?
That's kind of tough. That's actually tough. It doesn't have the hilarious dynamic of the villains being terrified of him the entire time. There is one guy who's just like, oh, this isn't good, but people are a lot more brash about attacking Wick because there comes a point where it's sort of like everyone versus Wick, and that's kind of how the first movie was, but in the first movie, it was everyone defending against Wick, and in the second movie, it's everyone going out against Wick because he got a really high bounty on him. So it's a different dynamic, but it's still Keanu Reeves just mowing people down by the dozen. So it's a different dynamic, but it's kind of a tough call as to which is better. And I very recently saw the movie, so I don't know how skewed I'm going to be on this one. In terms of world building, I might say the second one is superior, but in action, you could probably go either way. The choreography is insane in both movies. It's really great. He's got a real big thing on shooting people, and if he ever gets close to someone, grappling, throwing them down, then shooting them. And there's a fantastic there's a fantastic melee fight sequence, which the first movie didn't really do much of. It did a little bit of, but there's this other killer who's also seriously badass, and John Wick and him go after each other, and it's fantastic. It's definitely a lot of fun. So that's John Wick. Watch it. It's great. Otherwise, there's what you would expect me to keep bringing up here, the Witcher and Yakuza Dead Souls. I beat Yakuza Dead Souls.
Nice.
So the way I play the Yakuza games is I take forever to get anywhere because I try doing all the side stuff first. And that stuff can take a while. Like, dating all the hostesses alone can take forever. I tried perfecting the game with the exception of the minigames because to hell with that. There are way too many minigames, and some of them are just a serious pain in the ass, like Mahjong. Like, I can't stand playing Mahjong against 3 computer players. It's so horrible. Even though
I used to play some Mahjong games, and they could get it's annoying in person when you don't completely understand the rules, and then playing it as a game, and they're like pulling all these fast moves on you, and you're just like, what the hell's going on?
Yeah, all of a sudden you're down like 100 points. You're like, what? I mean, I mentioned this during our Danganronpa Let's Play a while back, but I actually looked up how to play Mahjong because there was a sub-story in Yakuza 2, and I'm like, oh, damn it. So I had to go through all that. So I just don't bother with it when I don't have to. So the minigames, just to hell with that. I did try doing every other set of things I could do. I ate and drank all the food and drink I could, because you get rewards for completing this stuff. I did it every hostess. I completed all of this one woman.
You dog.
Yeah, I completed all of this one woman, Hasagawa's missions. Some of those were a royal pain. But the rewards at the end are really, really fantastic. There's one set of missions you can do with each character called Subterranea, where you go into an underground dungeon, which is... They're relatively basic layouts, but they're randomly generated each time you go in, so there's no map for it. Not that it really matters, it's just mow your way through tons of zombies. So the first character has 15 floors to go through, second character has 20, then 25, then 30. And at the end of the 30th floor, for the last character, you finally fight the secret boss that has been in every Yakuza game so far, 1, 2, 3, 4, and Dead Souls. I assume he's in 5. I have no clue how 0 is going to work, because that's a prequel, but I guess I'll cross that bridge when I come to it. But there's this guy called Amon, and he's like the biggest badass ever, and he's hard to fight all the time. So in Dead Souls, because the entire game is gunplay, you fight his like dead ancestor, and he's ridiculous. He's like Akuma, like warping around the room and grabbing you and draining your health. Like, no enemy moves like this. It's just really disorienting. And the funny thing is, when I got to the end of the 30th floor, I fought him, but he had like a regular health bar. The way Yakuza health bars work is that the health bar is orange, but if an enemy has more health than what the bar has to offer, then it'll overlap into a new color. So you could tell how much health an enemy has as you work your way down
like
the
in
colors.
Final Fight or whatever.
And that's how, like...
Yeah.
Actually, that's how Legend of Mana's bosses were like, too, I believe.
Okay. So, but Amon just had the regular orange bar, and I was really thrown by it. He actually ended up being a really disappointing boss, but especially for the big bad secret boss. But after you leave, every character has to have an excuse to go back and do the dungeon a second time. It's a real pain. Like, they do the dungeon once, up to like 10 floors before the final destination, and then they go all the way through to the final destination. But with Kiryu, I went to the final destination. Fortunately, the game was kind to me and let me just teleport back there the second time around. But then you fight Amon for real, and he's got the full like 6 or 7 health bars, and I'm like, oh no, and he's just warping everywhere and throwing all sorts of projectiles. So that was a more proper fight, and the rewards you get for those things are so stupid. Like, you get... by this point, I had already had an infinite ammo pistol that I unlocked by doing other stuff, and it does 800 damage per shot, which for a pistol is freaking stupid. Like, the shotgun does more damage, it's like 1200, but like pistol, infinite ammo, would never have to reload, 800, like that. For a pistol, that's nuts. And I had the anti-materia rifle for Kiryu, which when fully upgraded does like 2500 damage, but it's relatively slow rate of fire, but it does stupid damage and penetrates enemies. So when I beat this guy, I got 2 things. 1 for beating him, and 2 for completing everyone's Subterranea. I got the satellite laser, which looks like a little PDA, and when you fire it, just 3 to 5 just red and black beams drop from the sky and just hit enemies and do stupid
like an Akira laser?
Yeah, like, just like lasers from the sky. It just rains death. I mean, if you're standing in the vicinity of where a laser would hit, you do get hurt, but it is a broken weapon. And the other thing I unlocked, which I've never seen before, was optical camouflage, which makes you turn sort of see-through like Metal Gear Solid or something. And special enemies and bosses will see you, but regular zombies, which make up like 95% of the enemies in the game, just have no clue you're there, even if you bump into them or shoot them. So it's almost an invincibility cheat. Like, it's pretty great. Finally beat the game. It was a big bombastic final boss. Yakuza usually has really dramatic final encounters, but this was way more of a video game type Yakuza game. So the final boss was actually one of those deals where it's a giant boss and he's sticking out of something and you can only see his head, torso, and hands. Like, for a Yakuza game to do that, it's like, what? Like, it's so out there. Like, here, big final boss, like Dead Space 1. And you're like, okay. So,
it seems like this game was a somewhat big departure from
it
usual.
was. It absolutely was. This is not my favorite Yakuza game, but they really did do their best to make it feel like a Yakuza game, except for that final boss, because they were just over the top with it, which, it was fun. Can't argue with that. So that was Yakuza. Now that I've beaten that, the next game I do for leisure will probably be Yakuza 5. I mentioned this last week, but I love Yakuza 2. And when I heard that 4 was better, I had a hard time believing it. But 4 was better. And now I hear that 5 is even better. I'm like, you have got to be kidding me. So I'm super excited. I have no clue what it's about, or even who you play as, except from Kiryu. So I am hyped. And the last thing, I'll be a little more brief with this one, is The Witcher. I advanced past Chapter 2, and I'm now in Chapter 3. Last time I talked about how the game really opened up. It kind of did. You had this big town. You could go in the sewers for a dungeon, this crypt in the cemetery for a dungeon. You could sail with a ferry to the swamp, where that's kind of the real place where you would grind. In Chapter 3, the swamp area has new enemies that are generally upgrades from the old ones, so there's more level opportunities there. But also, it turns out the town I was in was known as the Temple Quarter, and now I'm entering the Trade Quarter. So even though the Temple Quarter has merchants, the new area is like for real, and it looks more like a town. The houses are really big and tall, because the living quarters where I was in was basically the slums and the non-human quarter. So Trade Quarter, I think, is all humans, and everything is way more lavish. So now the game has opened up even more. So I've been trying to stop a drug trade, etc.
I think you're around the part where I stopped playing.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. Not because I thought it was bad. It was just, I think ended up being there was too much to do.
There's a lot.
I just got way too overwhelmed.
Yeah, without a guide.
There were other games out that I wanted to play, so I just said,
That's the thing.
I'll move on.
Yeah, without a guide, honestly, you probably would miss over half of the things there are to do, unless you make a point of talking to everybody. And who's going to do that? Especially because some people activate after a certain thing happens, but really, how many times are you going to talk to everyone in every town, for God's sake? So without a guide, good luck. So I'm using a guide to the letter. And I mean, this was way shorter, but that's where I am on The Witcher. I mean, the only thing I can really say is I'm just getting the side quests now, but I did some grinding from level 20 to like 35, so I'm actually prepared to fight stuff, because this game is not kind to you if you don't level up. You can always brew potions to power yourself up a little bit, but if you don't, then you'll get mowed down when all of a sudden a plot fight happens. So yeah, that's been my week. So how about you, Vyse?
Well, since some of the frequent listeners know, I've actually been moving to a new apartment, in the process of that, and I actually moved in this weekend, so a lot of this week was spent just packing things up and seeing what I can move easily, and organizing, and also throwing a lot of stuff out, and getting ready to sell some stuff that I found that I don't need anymore. So like the vast majority of my time is spent doing that, but every once in a while I would play the original Mushihimesama. I still I still like the second one better, but this game has its own charms for sure. I think the second one is a better game, but I've also been using it to test my new monitor that I talked about in Reactive last week. Okay. And it's really cool because I just got a mini DisplayPort to DisplayPort cable that will run the monitor with G-Sync capability, like I was talking about before. So there's like no vertical tearing in the images now, and the games look really good, and they're really quick on this monitor. So there's no discernible lag. I can't say there isn't any lag because that's not a thing that exists, but it's so minimum that it's really awesome and noticeably faster on this monitor, and it looks great. I've been using it since I moved in because I hooked my cable box up to it, and because I'm using it as a TV as well in my new apartment, and it's so much fun. I watched Steel on it on HBO with Shaquille O'Neal.
Oh, that Steel! Wow. For a second, I was thinking Real Steel with Hugh Jackman. I'm like, okay, but Steel.
No, even funnier.
I hope you followed it up with Kazam.
No, I was watching. I just turned it on this morning. While I was getting ready for work, and it was on. I was like, really? Some cable, like a premium channel, is showing this? Like, this is the best you could have done?
Yeah, I'm not sure I've ever seen that on TV.
Apparently so. I saw like the very end of it, and boy,
oh, good.
Wow. Spoiler alert. But yeah, and I watched Scott Pilgrim versus the World on a date a couple nights ago, which was pretty cool too.
I love that
wonderful.
movie.
Yeah,
my dad loves that movie.
My brother was not into it, and I'm like,
Your brother's a weirdo,
right? And my dad was not particularly into it either. He's like, yeah, whatever. Like, I'm like, how do you not love this movie? Then again, my brother didn't much care for Mad Max Fury Road, so I don't even know. He does have good taste in movies, but he didn't like those two freaking amazing movies.
Well, what also was really cool is I've been dating this girl for a while. She's been a girl that I met on Match.com, and I've been enjoying going out with her. And she chose the movie because she's seen it before. She actually knows a lot about movies. Like, she's on par with me. Like, she knows a lot about movies, and I just don't expect other people to know as much as I do.
Anyone else movies. Be as much of a dork as you?
Well, no, I just don't expect it. It's one of those things. Like, normally I can't talk about like specific directors unless you're. Mm-hmm. I know you're into that director, but like let alone like every director, she knows exactly who I'm talking about.
That's awesome.
Yeah. It was really cool, and in my apartment, I'm within walking distance of my favorite burger place, though the place where I had my graduation party.
Oh, nice! That place was great.
I remember. Yeah,
I'm within walking distance of it. It's less than a mile away.
Awesome.
That's fantastic.
And it's easy to walk it. Like there's sidewalks the whole time, and there's also the train station that goes into Philly is even closer. So this place is going to be really cool. We even have this really neat setup where we have like 3 couches, and you guys know what my basically all the furniture from my family room from my parents' house. So,
okay.
Oh wow!
Like,
what's
like the coffee tables and the side tables? Nothing. Like literally nothing. I'm not even joking. So it was one of those deals where I was like, okay, well, I'm going to move out. And my mom was like, well, you want a couple couches? And then my dad like starts turning his head. and then she goes, yeah, you can have the coffee tables too. And then my dad is like turning his head even more. And is like looking at her. Like, and yeah, you could keep, like the TV was always mine. You can keep the entertainment center, for the TV because it's just like, so what's left down there? Well, I was thinking we could get new furniture, and while we're doing it, since the whole place is empty, why don't we tear up the carpet and put laminate down? And and my dad's like, I get a new TV, right? It's just like one of those things. So like it looks kind of like my old family room in downstairs, but it's really neat because my roommate also brought a couch, so we have like 3 couches in a U shape, almost like a sectional would be, and it just looks really cool, and it's definitely made for entertaining space. So. And he's also very much okay with me setting up an entire like big wire rack of classic games hooked up to my television. It's something I've been wanting to do, but I never did because I was still in my parents' house. Mm-hmm. So we're gonna have the ultimate setup. It's gonna be really neat. So I can't wait. It's definitely exhausting been doing this. Like, I've been unpacking for the last like 3 days. I've only been here since Saturday. Tonight is Monday as of this recording, and I just I'm utterly exhausted. I'm like physically exhausted from doing it all. I'm like my muscles all hurt from like lifting couches and stuff. So yeah, I live in a 2-floor townhouse, 2 bedrooms upstairs and the living space downstairs. But it's really cool, and I can't wait to show it to you guys next time you come down to South Jersey. So that'll be really neat. So other than that, I have been working with my friend Noisy Doll with working on my joysticks. So for people that have been following the show, I have 2 joysticks that I've been working on. I got the Combat Obsidian a few weeks ago, and I bought some parts to customize it a little bit, just to get like some cool buttons and like a cool layout. And I wanted to get art for it, but it's not really made to add art to it.
Oh, I thought it was. So
here's the thing: it has a plastic top, but like the like a plexiglass like top, but it has like a layer of paint on the bottom of it, so therefore it cannot shine through to artwork. So what we had to do is we had to wait for one of the well-known joystick sellers online, like Focus Attack is the one that's doing it, to release a clear version of that top that you could just buy and then put artwork under it. So they came out with that, and they also sell custom artwork cut out. So like if Noisy Doll, what she's doing is she's designing a piece of artwork to be cut and sent to us. So okay. It's pretty cool. So my initial thought was that I wanted to make the Obsidian Donpachi themed. So I've been talking about this a while. So to have like a kind of like
one of your favorite shooters, so you might as well.
Exactly, and one of my favorite series. I wanted to have so the B symbol from Donpachi, and also have like kind of like a hive motif, you know, with octagons or hexagons, and I was gonna have gold buttons. It was gonna be really neat. Because Samwa came out with these gold buttons that are really, really awesome. They're really
pure shiny. Solid gold.
Yeah,
real ink and gold.
Only on the 24 karat buttons that I can find.
I knew you were spending a lot of money on this joystick, but Jesus.
Yeah.
I wear my grill only while playing Donpachi. But what actually turned out was that I also have been making this multi-console Cthulhu board arcade stick as well to use on my old systems. And so I wanted to be able to play NES games with an arcade stick. And so I've been building that one from scratch because nobody really makes one of those. You have to kind of buy the parts and put it all together. And you have to buy like a stick that you could put together and all that. So I did all that, and I actually think that gold and black motif of the Donpachi motif that I wanted to do will actually look better on that stick because it's like a pure black base, and it's really it would be really neat with the gold motif. I think gold and black really go well together. It's going to look classy.
And black and yellow, black and yellow.
Very Deus Ex Human Revolution.
I was actually thinking that. But my other thought was I wanted to make one of the joysticks Ikaruga themed because I love Ikaruga as well. So the Obsidian is the ultimately what I wanted to use for the black and white motif. So I actually got this really cool Samwa joystick ball top that is checkered black, white, and black. It's really neat looking, and I have these buttons that are have like a black rim and a white button, and also ones that have a white rim and black buttons. So it's going to look really neat. It's going to have like a black and white theme like Ikaruga does.
If you get your hands really close to the buttons without actually pushing them, you get more points.
That's actually what Castle Shikigami has that.
Oh, really?
Mechanic. Yeah, the grazing mechanic, is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, I believe Ikaruga... Oh, no, I think Ikaruga was absorbing the shots.
A lot of those types of shooters. I know Toho games do that too.
Yeah. It depends on the game. I really want to do a series on like the mechanics of shmups, but a grazing mechanic, for anybody who doesn't know, is where you actually... when your character is actually really close to a bullet but does not get hit by it, you get more points because you're being like more foolhardy. So it's pretty neat. I'm really excited to have these be actually themed around two of my favorite games in the shmups in the shmup genre. So and I like that the buttons and sticks themselves like go along with the themes. So that's really neat. And also, I don't know if you guys heard about this, but there's a new Super Nintendo game coming out called Unholy Night.
I haven't heard of it.
Was this the SNK fighter?
Yes. So you are right on.
You're
Lotus...
so smart.
Aw, shucks.
So, a bunch of old SNK employees decided that they wanted to make a new one-on-one fighter for the Super Nintendo. So they got together and made this game called Unholy Night, and I cannot wait to play it. The game's already finished, which is even better.
What is it?
It's just a one-on-one fighter that looks like it's fun, but it's designed specifically for the Super Nintendo.
Okay.
And what's really cool about it is the game's already finished. They just put out a Kickstarter for a physical version of it.
Nice.
So I'm not really big on Kickstarters as of late because, it's just all the different controversies that have come out.
But that's something that we could talk about a lot, probably in detail. I know
Sure.
I used to do a lot of Kickstarters, and then I stopped because I don't trust them as much anymore.
Yeah, no, and I'm right there with you. But this one, the game's already done, so I like this is for a cartridge to come out. So I'm okay with that. There's not a ton of they just need the money to make an order, like a minimum order, and that's actually what the description of it says. And there aren't a ton of tiers either. It's not like they're going to price themselves out with really wacky rewards or anything. I actually looked at it, and there are only like 3 things you can do. You can just like give them a donation. You can do it just enough to get a game, a manual and box, or you can get a special gold version of the game. But I'm not really into the gold colored cartridges or anything like that. I'd rather have like the regular one that they're going to come out with. I think it's going to be a clear casing for the Super Nintendo game. So I can't wait for it. I'm excited. I mean, even if it's an okay game, I still think it's a really neat
it's cool that it exists.
So that's pretty much my section this time. I would normally do a weigh-in, but one of the things I overlooked when I moved was that I didn't get a scale. So there's no actual way I could do a weigh-in. So we can move right on to questions.
You cheater.
Yeah. I did it on purpose.
So we've been getting a lot of computer and video game questions as of late. But this ought to be an interesting change of pace because we have a few in a row that are more other topics. So the Fool Arcana asks, do you think that the stigma associated with geek culture, and goes on to describe, geeks are like reclusive or social outcasts or et cetera, do you think that stigma has been erased or roughly the same as it was, say, 20 or so years ago? That's the question. Personally, I would say erased. Hell no, but it has absolutely been reduced because geek culture, like video games, comic books with the Marvel Cinematic Universe are becoming way more mainstream. It's not like, oh, you're that weird kid who had a Nintendo or something. Like now everybody, like Grand Theft Auto 5, I think made more money on launch day than like the highest grossing movies launch day of that time. It's getting to that point. So you can still make fun of someone for being like a gamer nerd or whatever, but we are now aware that there are far more of them than we might have thought.
Yeah, I was actually going to say that I don't 100% think that it has changed much. It's more that because we have the internet and because geeks and whatever can connect with more people like themselves, I think the whole part about geeks being reclusive was because they didn't have a lot of people like them around them. So if you saw a kid who was a little nerdy in school, he wouldn't have a lot of other friends like him. So that's why they would seem as reclusive, because they didn't have anyone to hang out with. But now that the internet lets you communicate with more people, they still might be reclusive, but they're going home to talk with their online friends that are interested in their hobbies.
And not to mention that there are a lot more conventions now where everybody who likes insert geeky subject here can all congregate, and now everybody in the room likes that thing you do. So that's also a good social experience.
Yeah, I would say that when we went through high school, our generation specifically, we really trailblazed the geek culture as being almost mainstream. It wasn't quite there yet when we went through, but there were things that supported us, like Game Club and things like that. Whereas in like when my brother went through school, he's 7 years older than me. He didn't have things like that. And he kind of liked those geeky things by himself at home. And I got into geeky things because of my older brother, and he's actually fallen out of them. He doesn't play video games or watch movies like I do now. And even when, like 7 years ago, when he was my current age, he wasn't into them like he used to be. It's actually kind of funny. He was the person who introduced me to all these things. But we were really like the first generation to really like bring back nostalgia as like a thing. Like I'll bring up an example. When we were in high school, there was a mini resurgence of NES games. Like people started collecting them. And now they are literally one of the things that is most watched on the internet. SNES games and NES games are being played is like literally one of the most watched things on the internet. So that kind of love of the past, but also a recognition of art being good. And entertainment being good from all eras, combined with the internet and awareness being spread, I think really has made that kind of a normal thing. The NES Classic wouldn't have been as big back then, but now that we're all older and people our age are starting to have their own kids, they're kind of being brought up into it, and it's a normal thing. It's not that thing that that one weirdo does. It's something that everybody knows a little bit about, at least.
Yeah, and like I was saying before, with the geeks themselves probably haven't changed. I think as a culture and society, it's becoming less odd for someone to be into these sorts of things, because games are becoming more normal, because comics are becoming more normal, that people who are interested in that, obviously the people who are really interested in it, like us, are still kind of like, wow, I didn't know people were into it that much. But I can talk to people that I work with and say like, hey, I just spent 12 hours playing a board game over the weekend, or hey, I'm playing this game that you probably never heard of, and they're like, oh cool. They might not care enough to like pry me on it, but it's not like, okay, don't talk to me, you're weird.
So another thing I wanted to bring up is the barrier to entry to these things is a lot lower than it used to be. So I'll bring up a like when I was going through middle school and high school, finding information on certain older comics and older comic book characters was near impossible. You would need to buy like or read out of print like encyclopedia of superheroes, that kind of thing, and you would need to read magazines and stuff like that, and especially with all the intricate backstories. Now you can just go on Wikipedia and catch up, or read like a decent article, or even watch a YouTube video, which is even less work. I mean, you can watch a well put together YouTube video that sums up what's happening with Colossus right now, or something like that, and just catch up. It's so much better than it used to be. I mean, I used to have to hunt for info on the things that I liked. I used to have to go into like Funko Lands and then like scour their papers and find out, hey, this game was actually released. Like it's just like stuff like that, Like I used to do that kind of stuff all the time. You don't need to do that anymore. You have Google now.
Yep.
Like it's a lot different, and I think that barrier to entry and the fact that nerds are now creating media, that they're writing articles, they're writing things about the stuff that they loved. Things that they love now. Something like Stranger Things would have never been as popular as, it was.
Not only that, but nerds are actually now able to talk directly to the comic creators. I mean, they may or may not get a response, but with Twitter, you can actually hit up.
Comic book creators want to hear them.
No, I mean that's true, but like you can reach them via Twitter,
Yeah.
which is rather interesting.
Yeah, I mean, like, there's just such a much better dynamic now. I guess you could make the argument that X-Files was really popular at the time, so maybe Stranger Things might have been something people would have been into, but not. I think everybody watched Stranger Things, and some people watched. X-Files was pretty big.
A lot of people, more so than the people who would be interested, than you'd think would be interested in some of the topics they talk about.
Exactly. Yeah. Like I almost like. Almost everybody that I know has watched Stranger Things at this point. And so, like, I just think that it is also the media is the people that are creating these shows were nerds just like us, or are nerds just like us. So, a lot of the stuff that's being created is passing that kind of thing on to teenagers now that all kind of have a little bit of nerd in them because of it. It's not a weird thing to be into all these things. Like plenty of people are in Overwatch. Like that's a normal thing for any kid to be into, or like any kid to be into Minecraft. It's not like it's that thing off towards the side. It's something that every kid does.
And actually, it's interesting that you bring. Oh, Pyro, go ahead.
No, you go, and then I'll go after.
All right, I'll be quick. It's interesting that you brought up made for nerds by nerds, because you could tell that wasn't the case before. Like, if you ever see the movie, the first Revenge of the Nerds movie, where it's like, look at these socially like incompetent nerds using computers. What? Who? I mean, obviously computers are more mainstream now, but like these are the kinds of people who use them. And now you have like computer hackers being depicted as sort of the cool people, like the bad guy in Live Free or Die Hard, or Q's, or like Q in Skyfall. Like they're like 20 something, like relatively young people who are like being cool doing computer stuff. And even the kids in Stranger Things, they were Dungeons and Dragons nerds. Good freaking luck having nerds luck well adjusted like in that kind of setting. But these were all like cool kids who had good relationships. Like if Stranger Things were actually made in the 80s, oh, you better believe those kids would have been portrayed differently.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, they would have been like the Goonies or whatever. They would have been like maybe maybe one of them would be a nerd, but not all of them.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was gonna say that like when I was a teacher, I was very open about my interests, and most students thought that was awesome, and they try to talk to me about like what game I'm playing and what like comic books I'm reading, etc.
Nice.
Whereas maybe 20 years ago or so, if I were to do that, I would be the weird teacher, and I probably wouldn't be talking about that in class. Yeah.
All right. At this point, I think we have time for one more question. Kurikund asks, "What are your?" This is a sort of a two-parter, but I think these can be done quickly. What are your respective jobs, and how did you get interested in them? And how come we don't use our first names?
I'll start. So first of all, everyone cover your ears if you don't want to hear my real name.
What?
I mean, my name's Dan. I have nothing against it. I think it's just we stuck with, Lotus Prince is known for his handle, so we all just stuck with our handles. I have nothing against anyone calling me by my first name. It's just kind of sticking with the theme of the podcast, I guess you could say. As per my job, I work with the New York City Board of Education with computer science stuff, getting computer science in schools and trying to make that computer science more of a thing that students do and see and are exposed to throughout their school career. So that's that. I don't know if you two are willing to talk about your life, but I'm free for it.
Yeah, sure.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say who's gonna go first. Do you want to go?
Yeah.
All right.
So, my name is Andrew. I am a mortgage loan officer, which does not fit my type, for sure. However, I got interested in it. I actually met Lotus in grad school to become teachers. We were both becoming English teachers at the time, and when we got out of grad school, it was 2010, and it was really hard to find an English teaching job.
That was an awful time, yeah.
Yeah, so many of our friends still do not have full-time English teaching jobs, and you're still looking for one. And I basically became a bank teller as a way of making ends meet while I was looking for a teaching job. Well, it turns out that I'm really good. I'm a good salesperson. So I've actually known that ever since I was at GameStop. I used to be a high-ranking GameStop employee. I used to be one of those jerks who would hound everybody for reserves and subscriptions to Game Informer.
And I think old man Stompy can attest to that in the sense of you've convinced him to play so many games that you haven't even played.
Well, I was never a scumbag seller. I was always a person that was really good at making connections, because I know video games so well. I was able to make a suggestion based off of the game that you brought me to.
I'm just messing with you.
Well, no, I'm just saying, I was always up on the news. I knew what games were coming out, what people were excited about, and what types of games people played to suggest something that was coming out. So that's why I was so good at it. And I would also ask every single customer. I was also very adamant about doing a good job. So that also translates to selling other things, just having a good knowledge base, being genuine, and also not being afraid to ask. Are all things that are part of being a good salesperson. You can easily be a bad one if you're a jerk and you lie all the time. And do not have the other person's best interest at heart. But I think when people deal with me, they know that I genuinely want their lives to improve with the things that I'm selling them. It's a two-sided transaction. It's not a one-sided one. So I benefit. The company that I work with benefits, and you benefit from the thing that you're purchasing.
I do.
Or signing up for. So I worked my way up as a banker, and I went from being a temporary floating teller who didn't really even have a home to making a lot of connections because I was floating from branch to branch. And I eventually moved all the way up to and switched banks a couple times to the highest level salesperson you can be in a retail bank. So that's a salesperson that can not only sell loans and accounts and do all the customer service stuff and refund fees and all that stuff, and also be the sales coach. I can also sell insurance and annuities and other investment type things. So I got all the licenses for that, and while I was doing that, I got an MBA in finance to supplement it, and then I became a mortgage loan officer, which is an even more concentrated form of that, except now I'm not in retail. I do it over the phone. So I didn't really put much thought into our names, really, mostly because I wanted you two to be comfortable being on the podcast at first, but now that you don't care, I don't care. But the other thing was that we used to use our names during our LPs with Lotus, so I kind of just wanted some kind of consistency, and this is kind of my nerd name anyway.
The canon.
This is my true self. In a lot of ways, I like being VyseTheBold. It's my internet name, So, and I've also been on the internet a long time, and made a lot of friends on the internet. As I used to be on Hardcore Gaming 101 quite a bit, and I was a moderator there. So it's just one of those things. I also, use VTB as my initials on any game I get a high score in. So it's just one of those things.
All right. Well, as for me, yeah, we've let my name slip a couple of times, but I'm Justin.
And welcome to my website.
And welcome to my website. I think I care a little less about that because one of the sort of running jokes between Mr. Ryu and me is that if I like am starting to do something stupid or like this isn't gonna go well in a game, Mr. Ryu would be like, Justin, and like it kind of happened a few times in Ride to Hell, so it's like, well, I guess the cat's out of the bag now. So whatever. I could have edited it all over, but I don't care enough, and I didn't feel like it. So there it is. It's out
His
there.
name is Daryl, by the way.
Oh, you fool! What have you done?
I outed him.
Oh no. So as for a profession, yeah, Vyse, you already kind of mentioned it. I teach. Well, I do two things. I teach and I tutor. So I tutor in an actual tutoring center, and I've also done some private tutoring on the side. The tutoring stuff goes anywhere from, I mean, I've done some elementary, but right now the lowest grade student I have is 5th grade, which is, around 11 years old. But I've done mostly middle school, some high school. As for teaching, I teach essay writing courses at university. And now Vyse had mentioned that I'm still looking for a full-time job. I have been working consistently at this university for like 5 years. I've had work every semester, but it's not full-time. Like I have a part-time amount of sections to teach. So I teach 2, maybe 3 sections per semester, whereas a full-timer would teach 4 probably in the fall and 3 probably in the spring. So 7 for the year, whereas I teach a maximum of 6, but more likely 4 or 5. But I teach essay writing to freshmen, so a lot of it is it's reading comprehension and writing. So I give these students essays from authors to read, and then they answer a question that's related to the essays, and the student's job is to answer the question to like whatever they think the answer would be, and use the authors to back them up. If they disagree with the authors, then they can still use them to back them up, just contradict the authors. Like, my point is better because it's not like high school book report format where here's what you learned from the author. This is a class where you are the authority, and that takes a lot of getting used to. I also teach the same kind of class, but for English language learners, where like all but 2 up to everyone is Chinese. Like some of them have come. They've been in the United States for a little while. Some of them, this is like their first time. Like they've had English classes so they can speak it decently enough. But writing an essay is a whole other world, even for native English speakers. And there is way the hell more focus on grammar in that class because, let's face it, if you didn't grow up learning English sucks. Like, it's one of the hardest languages to learn. Chinese might be harder because it's tonal and there's just so much of it. But with English, with English, it follows rules from multiple different old languages like Greek and Latin, and you don't know which pattern you're following at which time, and you have is and are, like forms of to be. There are different forms of to be. There's like 6. Conjugations are a pain in the ass. There are irregular verbs everywhere. There are idioms like the aforementioned.
Spelling is inconsistent and dumb.
Yeah.
And it can sometimes kill an entire word. I've gotten prefect instead of perfect. I've gotten massage instead of message. It's one stupid letter, but it kills the whole thing. And yeah, like the aforementioned let the cat out of the bag. I was just curious. I asked my students if they knew what that one meant, and none of them did. And you're not going to figure it out. There's no cat, there's no bag, and the reference that it is making is to England from hundreds of years ago. Like
and it's also very disturbing.
Yeah, but like you either know it or you don't. And like even if you know what the expression means, you probably don't know its etymology. So like if you're learning English, good freaking luck. So yeah, those are the classes I teach. I would very much enjoy a full-time position at the university, but we are working on that. I will apply whenever there are openings, and of course look for stuff in other universities or preferably high schools as opposed to like middle or elementary. Well, I'm not certified for elementary, but preferably secondary schools or colleges as they come up. So that's me.
As longtime listeners may glean, I still have the teaching itch. That's actually, part of the reason why we have this project is because I wanted to express like a lot of my thoughts and knowledge about a lot of the subjects that I like, and also the classes that I do for cinema studies are another way that I'm trying to scratch that itch of being an English teacher. I have since really embraced my job as a financial person and really do not want to ever be an English teacher for high school. However, I would love to do the occasional college course, especially in cinema studies, because I really love the material, and I really would love to be in a situation where I could talk about that kind of stuff again. So if anybody's wondering, I already have a master's degree in English education. Why am I not using it? I would argue that it's made me a better communicator as a salesperson, especially in the way that I communicate very deliberately over email as well, and I'm very professional over email, and it shines through in my job. I do very well, and I gotten lots of accolades. So that's just something I wanted to bring up. It's kind of like my master's degrees seem like they're unrelated, but they really aren't.
Public speaking,
Yeah, that's another thing. I'm not afraid to publicly speak as a result of my teaching training, and I also have been published in an academic journal conference because I wrote a really good financial paper. So I mean, and that was all because of my ability to write and put thoughts together from when I was, teaching English and learning how to teach English. So I just wanted to add that part.
Yeah, and speaking of which, also really quickly, you mentioned you're very deliberate when writing emails and stuff like that. People who've been watching my Let's Plays for a while are probably aware that I'm grammatically nitpicky to a fault.
You're very grammatically
no,
deliberate.
You're not.
Yeah, shucks. But that's the reason why I basically get away with being that guy for the English language learner class, especially because that's stuff they actually really need to know, as opposed to, oh, excuse me, it's actually whom, so I actually get to deal with grammar for real, which is kind of nice.
Yeah, I mean that's also one of those things where I spoke very much like that for a long time, and I learned that I just didn't want to sound like an asshole in some situations. So I do dumb down my vocabulary to a point. I still don't totally get away from it, but I know in certain situations when I shouldn't sound like an encyclopedia.
Yeah.
This is not one of them. This is a fairly nerdy. It is a very nerdy podcast, but it's one of those things where you tool your vocabulary for different situations. In certain situations, you do not want to sound like
posh.
The other party. Yeah, you don't want to sound like a jerk. Is the best way I could put it. And in selling, you don't want to sound like a snob. You kind of want to sound like somebody that wants to help the other person out, which is the way I want to come across, because that's the way I feel. But you need to portray that as well in your presentation. So, having said that, I think we answered those two questions. We will definitely catch up with everybody on our sister podcast, Corrective Consciousness, on Thursday. Please keep asking us questions. Once again, we absolutely love the questions, and it's our favorite part of the podcast. We are nearing also some changes. We actually have some due dates that we're working towards right now for other things having to do with the Corrective Consciousness label. So look out for it soon. Expect it, very, very soon. And thanks everybody for the support and helping us shape the podcast to what it's been. We've definitely refined it over time, and I really like the way it's gone. So please keep giving us a thumbs up on the YouTube channel. Definitely friend all of us individually on Twitter and our other social media sites, and you can even friend me on pretty much anything. I'm on PSN, Steam, everything as VyseTheBold, VyseTheBold. Anybody else want to plug in?
What he said.
No, I'm done.
yeah, you can hit me up on Twitter at Lotus Prince. I don't really use Steam or PSN as social media profiles, so like I'm usually offline anyway, so it wouldn't do much good.
Oh yeah, and I forgot to tell everybody to give us likes on SoundCloud and also give us 5-star ratings on iTunes as well. So keep showing your support, keep interacting with us. We absolutely love doing the podcast, so we want to keep doing this for you. So we will catch you on the sister podcast on Thursday. See you then.
Until next time, everyone.
Bye, everyone.